Hello, good afternoon. My name's Emily Davis and I'm just doing a short video here just to give you some information about the fraud of council tax among many other frauds that are being perpetrated by what we know as our government. So number one, I'm not here to give you any legal advice. You can make of this video what you will, and you can go and do your own research following watching this video. What's contained herein is truth and fact, and you can go to it's been put as truth and fact into an affidavit of truth and fact by Baron David Ward, and you can download this document from discovertheevidence.org, and I recommend that if you're watching this video and you haven't already seen that document, please go to that website discovertheevidence.org and download yourself a copy and read it. Very important. It's been served on 657 MPs, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of the Crown, and many others. Now what I'm here to tell you about today is the fraud of council tax. So I'm going to get on with it, try and make this short and sweet and as clear as I can. We've all received one of these recently. It's what we know as our new council tax bill, telling us how much we need to pay and when we need to pay this to our local authority, which as a matter of fact is a sub-office of a company, a private all-for-profit company called HM Parliaments Governments PLC, which we know as the government who is in charge of us. In actual fact, they're not in charge of us. They are just a private corporation. They have no more standing than McDonald's or Sainsbury's or Marks and Spencer's or any other PLC company out there. They're no different, and they have no authority over us. Now, what this is, or what many of us will think this is a bill. It's not a bill. It does not comply with the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. It's not signed. No person in the council have picked up one of these. No living being has signed their name in wet ink, which makes it a bill. What it actually is an offer of contract. And if you don't know that, then you will tacitly agree to be bound by it. So at the point of the new council tax year, which is for the period the 1st of April 2016 to the 31st of March 2017, once you understand that it is an offer of contract, the only thing in this world that can legally bind you to anything is a formal contract, whereby all parties disclose all terms and the terms are agreed to, and all parties pick up a pen and sign in wet ink under their name and agree. This is what makes a legal agreement. So there isn't a law. It's not the law to pay council tax. As a matter of fact, there is no law. The law is a lie. There isn't any law anywhere, not common law, not statute law, and what we refer to as law. There are contracts, what we agree to stand under as moral human beings. So what we think is law are actually acts and statutes of Parliament. These are not law. They are company policy, because as we've already just learnt a few minutes ago, the government is not an impartial government. It is a private all-for-profit corporation called HM Parliaments Governments PLC. So the council tax that you've got here, bill, is actually an offer of contract, and all of the terms are not disclosed. So there are clear requirements for a contract. I'll tell you what they are. They are that all parties must be living parties. They must all lay out all of the terms. They must all agree. They must sign the contract in wet ink under their name with wholeheartedly, willingly, without coercion, not under duress, and without the threat of loss or harm. This is what makes a contract valid, and it makes a legal agreement. Now, if a person, if a party breaks the contract, then the other party can lawfully enforce the contract. If the contract doesn't meet any of the criteria of a contract, i.e. it isn't given full disclosure, or it's not signed correctly, executed as it should be, as per their own rules, the Companies Act 2006 section 44, then it's null and void. Without disclosure, the contract can't be lawfully enforced because it's null and void. So very important to understand what binds you. And what binds you, the only thing that binds you to anything in this world are contracts, not laws, or company policy rather, of a private or for-profit corporation who's assumed authority over you, which they don't have. They don't have, unless HM Parliaments and Governments PLC can produce the circa 64.2 million signed contracts of the people, then there is no government. There is no consent to be governed. So a statute, the definition of a statute is a legislative rule that is given the force of law by consent. So this means that it isn't a law. This confirms it is not a law. A statute, an act, isn't a law. It is a rule, regulation, which if you consent, you are bound. If you sign a formal contract to say that you agree to uphold all the acts and statutes and do as HM Parliaments and Governments PLC say, then you are bound. And these, if you breach these acts and statutes, then HM Parliaments and Governments and their sub-offices, so the police and etc, the local authority can lawfully enforce them. But to my knowledge, they don't have 64.2 million contracts of the people of this land known as the UK. So, what to do? Well, if you do nothing and you just don't pay, because you've done nothing and you haven't told them the facts, how it is, they are most probably going to threaten you. They're most probably going to employ a bailiff who's coming round to enforce the act, which they will claim is the Local Government Finance Act 1992. There you go. That is which rule you are required to pay council tax under. It isn't the law, and you can't be sent to prison for not paying. Or for not abiding by this act if you have not consented. So I'm going to read you a quick letter, what I've done to my local council, Bromley Council. I've written to the CEO of Bromley Council, and it goes like this. Thank you for your correspondence of the 11th of March, council tax bill, the contents of which are noted and will be kept on file. 1. We note that there is an offer of contract from the private all-for-profit Corporation of London Borough of Bromley, who is a sub-office of HM Parliaments and Governments PLC, also a private all-for-profit corporation. 2. We note that there are limited terms disclosed. 3. we note that one of the terms is for us to transfer funds to the London Borough of Bromley for the sum of 1,234.99 for the period 1st of April 2016 to the 31st of March 2017 for undisclosed products or services. We note that the offer of contract does not provide full disclosure. Number 5, we note that the offer of contract is not executed correctly and signed in wet ink by either a director of London Borough of Bromley in the presence of an independent witness, or alternatively by 2 officers of London Borough of Bromley as per the Companies Act 2006 section 44. After considering the private corporation's offer, on this occasion we have decided to decline, and we return all contractual documents herewith unsigned, and therefore we are unbound by any terms therein. We thank you again for your offer of contract, and we regret that we have to inform you that the terms are not suitable for us to engage in business. We have no desire to negotiate any further amended terms that London Borough of Bromley may offer in the future for the same period or any other specified future period. All correspondence will be kept on file without ill will or vexation. Yours sincerely, for and on behalf of the principal legal embodiment by the title of Miss Emily Davies, for and on behalf of the Attorney General of the House of Davies, for and on behalf of Baroness Emily of the House of Davies, Attorney at Law, no assured value, no liability, no errors or omissions accepted, all rights reserved and on assumption. And there you go, I've signed, sealed my document with my thumbprint, and I've signed in wet ink across here and declined the offer. And I've sent back all the documents that London Borough of Bromley have seen fit to send me to try and deceive me, but unfortunately it hasn't worked this time. So also last year, I wasn't actually aware of this information last year until probably about June or July, and I decided, well, I haven't got a contract and I've been deceived, so any contract is null and void. So for last year, I have a company who London Borough of Bromley have employed called Phoenix Commercial Collections Limited. They sent a bailiff to me in November, the 2nd of November, and I served a letter on him and asked him for all of his details and copies of the so-called liability order, which I've not been able to obtain from the Magistrates Court, from the council itself, or from Phoenix, who are making claims that I owe funds to the council. So just to make it very clear, that if a bailiff does come to your address, you will need to ask them for, if they claim they are an enforcement agent, that they will need to give to you the recognised licence authorised by a certifying named judge with his wet ink signature, accompanied by an affixed court seal. That's not a rubber stamp or a piece of paper which says the judge's name and the signature line's empty. The judge must sign in wet ink. He must affix an official court seal to that document, which grants the claimed enforcement agent authority to be an enforcement agent. You will also require their indemnity insurance along with photo ID, so a valid passport or a valid driving licence, combined with a utility bill. They must provide that to you. They must also provide to you, I'm just reading off of my letter, sorry, not looking directly at the camera. They must also provide to you the material evidence that any judge has the authority to grant authority to another. You know, what you must remember is that the judge is an employee of the private company, which is no different to McDonald's, HM Parliaments and Governments PLC. And so this fact has been confirmed by the Right Honourable Lord Chief Justice Sir Jack Beatson FBA. You can see that in the document I mentioned right at the beginning, the Affidavit of Truth and Statement of Fact on discovertheevidence.org. And it's been agreed that before anyone who is a public servant, i.e. an employee of HM Parliaments and Governments PLC or any of their sub-offices, before they can make a claim under an act against you, they have to fulfil the requirements of their obligations, that there is a formal contract between you and HM Parliaments and Governments PLC, that you have signed an official contract saying that you agree to abide by all the acts and statutes of this private corporation. Now, if you haven't got this yet, you know, what I'm basically saying to you is that you are not bound by Sainsbury's company policy or McDonald's company policy or any other private PLC company's company policy, unless you sign a formal contract to agree that you are bound by that company's company policy. So, and also, what you have to understand is that they can change their company policy as and when they see fit. So basically, they make it all up as they go along. It's really easy. You know, you have this private PLC, all-for-profit corporation who are pretending to be a government, and they're not a government. You know, where is the material evidence of all the people who voted this government in? Because as far as I'm aware, we all went to the ballot box, those of us that voted, and we marked an X on an undisclosed piece of paper without our name, without our address, without our signature. Now, if we were all voting for somebody to govern us, why would we not say, I am Miss Emily Davis of Rose Hill Road, and I vote for David Cameron? Not. You know, disclose, full disclosure. If you're asking somebody to govern you, if you're giving your authority to somebody else to tell you what to do, disclose that. I mean, anybody can make the results of an election to however they want. If all we're talking about as material evidence are loads of bits of paper that are not allocated to any people, and just an X is marked, anyone can make that up. So there is no material evidence of an elected government at all, anywhere. It doesn't exist. So therefore there is no legal agreement, there is no formal contract where we have agreed, where there is full disclosure, where we have signed willingly, wholeheartedly, without coercion, not under duress, and not under the threat of loss or harm. There are none of these contracts that exist as material evidence. The material evidence of these is required. That means the physical material evidence, the formal contract that's written down, signed, where all the living parties have picked up one of these and they've signed their names and taken responsibility for that. So this goes to the same thing as when they tell you that there's a liability order because you haven't paid. So the liability order must again be signed by the judge. It must be sealed with an official court seal. The judge must be named so you know who that judge is, who has made this order. And what I can tell you is that there are no orders anywhere in this land that are valid. There is no court order anywhere that is signed in wet ink by a named judge and affixed with an official court seal. They don't exist, because if they do sign them, this creates reverse liability. They are then liable, and you can deal with them as you see fit if they cock up. So that's just a little bit on council tax. As I said, please go and do your own research. Don't take what I've said as gospel. It takes some months of research to go and find out all this information. It's taken me nearly a year to find out all what I've learned. And it's by no means legal advice to anybody. Make of it what you will and go and do your own research. So that's about the size of it. So there's my letter to the council declining their contract. I will do a follow-up video at some point if I get a reply, when I get a reply, and if I get no reply I'll let you know as well, because that'd be quite interesting. So we will see. Hope this has helped you. Much love. Take care. Bye.